So no,
If
just
the bullet couch, your day is gone.
Oh, really?
We should
Oh, yeah,
talk, because that's the space, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
So I think we'll I'll have my microphone. We're going to start all the way with this.
Welcome everyone, thanks so much for coming. Would you believe that I've been trying to put this Insurtech panel together for about like 10 months and crypto and blockchain just like overwhelmed us there for a while. So it's really great to have incredible panelists tonight. I feel very honoured that they're all able to come. And hang on a moment. Thank you. And so, first of all, the attorney that is hosting tonight wasn't able to make it, but Shepard Mullen, I have to give incredible gratitude and thanks to them. They've actually been sponsoring these events 2 a month at least since the beginning of 2017. And it's just on the back of these events alone, Shepard Mullen now has their logo on anything to do with blockchain and crypto and FinTech. So, you know, it's a great credit to all the panelists, all the speakers that have been here over the years. So tonight I'm going to let Karen, who's the moderator, she's going to introduce, or get the panelists to introduce themselves. So over to you.
Yes.
No, that's a lavalier.
Okay.
You should just like, how do you want to plug it into yourself?
Okay.
Plug it onto something and
Okay.
hold it.
And then
And
this.
just put that on. Is that how it goes?
Can you hear? Oh, this goes here.
Thank you.
That's easier.
Thank you for the technical pause. Right? Does that work?
Flick the switch.
There's an answer.
Excellent.
How many Insurtech people does it take?
I think it should be.
Is that, can you hear me now? It doesn't sound like it's on.
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we just do,
Yeah.
Don't
I'll use
even
one
worry
of the
about it.
microphones and then we'll just.
You'll be fine, we got you. Project.
So I'm a recovering developer, so that is, normally developers don't look at the actual instructions until it doesn't work. So, well, I want to welcome everyone to Insurtech because what it really is a lot of people think insurance is really stagnant, and actually what we see happening out there is there's a lot of growth, especially in the last 10 years. And some of the founders here will talk to some of the new different industries that are really blossoming out there. So myself, I come from as a recovering developer, I come from the startup world, and so I have a company called Startup Roll Call, and we really are about trying to help entrepreneurs do the hacks around how can I quickly get into investors I need to, how can I jumpstart my sales, and so I do that in a mix of startups for consulting for startups, and some of those are Insurtechs. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go down the line, start with Simha, and we're going to talk a little bit about what everybody does, and then we'll ask the burning questions of around what do you see as far as your product, you know, what are the interesting things happening. We have a great panel, which is a mix of actual venture capitalists along with actually people in the industry, so it'll give 2 different perspectives. But I'll let Simha start, and we'll go down the list and find out a little bit.
Hi, good evening. My name is Simha Sadasiva. I'm the founder and CEO of a startup called Usher. It's spelled USHUR. It's not the R&B singer Usher. I started Usher a little over 5 years back along with my co-founder in about 7 years. Had a fascinating ride. Every phone call that you make into 40 countries goes through a product that I've either built or marketed. And then about 5 years back, I wanted to actually do something else. So this is my second time around, but this time as a founder. It's been a wild ride, but I'm having the time of my life the past year and a half especially. I've had tremendous success in terms of building customer base. And I'm here to talk a little bit about my journey and some of the applications of what we do with the technology, like machine learning and artificial intelligence and how we have applied linguistics for insurance and Insurtech as a vertical and insurance companies in general.
Hey guys, my name is Vivek. I am a venture capital investor at a fund called Commerce Ventures. We're 6 years old and invest in a seed through Series B, early stage enterprise companies in what we call commerce. So for us, it's FinTech and retail. I spend most of my time in enterprise FinTech and Insurtech. And before that was a misspent youth in investment banking, again, specific to FinTech, working on lending companies, Insurtech companies, and payments companies.
Hi, I'm Gopi Vangan. I'm the founder and general partner at Shore Ventures. Shore Ventures is a seed stage venture capital firm investing in Insurtech. And as to the best of my knowledge, I think Shore Ventures is the first Silicon Valley-based venture capital fund that focuses on Insurtech, especially on the seed stage. There are many others that are corporate-backed, but there is no institutional venture fund. I'm very, very excited about this space because insurance is kind of the backbone of our economy, and it touches people's lives at highs and lows on a daily basis. And that whole industry is going through fundamental transformation. There's lots of opportunities for ambitious entrepreneurs to build new businesses. So I'm very, very excited to see how this is all going to evolve in the next few years. I'm looking forward to talking to all of you more about this.
Hi, my name is John Dobke. I lead the product management team at Trove. So Trove's pretty well known in the Insurtech space, world's leading on-demand insurtech company. What people tend to know us for is the app where you can get coverage for your cameras or whatever the things you love for any period of time. What a lot of people don't know is a lot of the ways that we've been using these capabilities in the B2B space. So, we have a partnership with Waymo to provide insurance for their autonomous vehicles. Similarly, for the Peugeot PSA car share program called Free to Move out in DC. So we handle the insurance for that. And we're also working on a renter's insurance product that's all digital, auto, personal mobility insurance, and so on. So it's been really exciting to see, as Kobe was saying, there's so much opportunity and so much so many chances to disrupt and really innovate in this space. It's fun to be able to apply that in a broader space. Personally, I'm relatively new to insurance. I've been at Trove for about 9 months, but was in FinTech for about a decade before that, and I'm also a recovering developer, but it's 15 years and counting, so.
Hello everyone, I'm Sid Governini, and I think I have recovered. I'm not a developer anymore, but I'm the CEO and co-founder of Zeguro, and we are a cybersecurity and a cyber insurance company. So we take Insurtech to a different arena where it's not just about insurance, it's all about cybersecurity first. So helping small and medium-sized businesses who have no idea about cybersecurity and helping them understand their risk, decrease that risk, and then provide insurance based on that risk. And all of this is, of course, automated. We don't want to put 1 million people to help the million small businesses. And that's really our philosophy, is to always focus on the risk, decrease the risk, and then provide insurance. And this really came about from my and my co-founder Dan's experience with cybersecurity and looking at not just the issues that businesses have with understanding and being secure, but also with procuring or managing the cyber insurance. And that's really all of these culminated into what we have today, Zeguro.
So Sid, I have some blockchain experience, and so cybersecurity and blockchain is always a discussion because there's a hack a day. And so when you look at your customers and who you're going after, can you talk about what's your target market and why you chose them? And maybe perhaps talk about what characteristics kind of force a company to say, did something negative happen, or is there usually a forcing function that makes them come to you, or is it kind of the fear that they're afraid of a forcing function? So it'd be interesting to see from which perspective.
How much time do we have?
You can see afterwards. Cliff notes.
Yes. So we are very much focused on, as I said, small and medium-sized businesses, so companies under 100 million in revenues. And these are typically the businesses who have no idea about cybersecurity. Or even if they do, they just don't focus on it, they don't have the resources to pay $400 an hour to security professionals. And today there are 3.5 million job openings for security professionals. There's no way that can ever be filled. And these businesses are the most susceptible. In 2017, 61% of these SMBs had a cyber attack. 61, that's a ridiculous number. And 60% of businesses that have a data breach in this segment go bankrupt because it's expensive, whether it is regulatory fines or whether they get sued by their customers, their large enterprise customers, or even ransomware attacks, something as simple as that. And it gets really expensive. So the companies that come to us, to answer your question, these are the companies, typically, let me back up a little, the two trends that are going on. Regulation, like GDPR or CCPA, which will be coming up next year.
Okay.
These are requiring businesses to think about data, think about privacy, think about security. So they're coming to us for that. But more so, they're coming to us because of contractual requirements.
Okay.
So today, if you look at the contracts from any large enterprise for the vendors and suppliers, they all require them to either be secure, well, not either, they require them to be secure and have cyber insurance.
Okay.
So that is forcing them to come to us looking for these two aspects.
Thank you. And this kind of falls into, John, you said that, you know, you're moving not only to in the B2C space, but you guys are also in the B2B. Is that, you know, what encouraged, or was it a natural transition, or was it to try to get a mix of customers, so more stability for the company?
I mean, I'd say little column A, little column B. You know, there were certain things that we've done in the B2B space that were pretty natural extensions of what we did in the single item space. So for example, one of the things we're working on is a renter's insurance offering. You could think of that as essentially a B2B2C, where it's still aimed at consumers, but we're working in partnership with somebody who can help us with the customer acquisition, for example. But that's a fairly natural extension because, you know, with renters, you sort of got a home contents blanket coverage, but then on top of that, we can layer kind of an anywhere item sort of concept where you could have protections for things even when they're not in your home.
So do you offer bike insurance in San Francisco?
So we actually did just add sport, like certain categories to single items, so yes. So interesting thing about Trove is our legacy was actually as an inventory app. We started as an app where you could track your treasure trove of the things that you love, and then we got into the protection angle after that. And so what's interesting is like we got really focused on getting down to the very precise item that you have, which in the bike world is almost impossible because they change models every year. Everybody tricks out their bike with lots of accessories and so on. So we kind of simplified that, and that was one of the hurdles to offering bike insurance. But you know, some of our B2B stuff has been a little bit further afield, like since you asked about bikes, you know, mobility is this massive thing, and it reminded me a little of what you said in terms of the regulation or the requirements. You know, if you look at companies that are trying to launch, let's say, scooter programs in multiple different cities, each city manager has their own rules about what kind of insurance that they require and how much coverage and what type and all this stuff. It's kind of crazy, it's this Wild West kind of situation. So we're hoping that like if we can abstract out kind of some of those differences and provide some standardization, that will help our customers scale. So they can say yes to those cities and then be able to add on more cities and scale more quickly. So it's sort of interesting how in that side it was more like, hey, we have this technology, let's find a way to apply it and to help deal with kind of the regulatory complexity to be able to scale.
Well, and I think that what we see is it's the complexity of different jurisdictions have different, you know, especially, I know you said they're based in the US, you guys I think are starting to be global. And then I think it will be interesting from a deal perspective with Gopi and Vivek to hear, like, are you guys seeing local deals? Are you also looking in the global space, or what are you seeing from in the Insurtech?
The difference in the world of insurance compared to other sectors is like Sid mentioned, we are contractually obligated to own an insurance product.
Mm-hmm.
In whichever area of our life, where our life takes. Whether it's a business or an individual, we need to drive a car around and we need to own a car, we must have insurance. It's mandated. And even when it's not mandated, it's a preferred product. So from that perspective, it is such an unusual industry where there are captive customers desperately wanting to buy products. This is not like an Airbnb type situation where you blow up your air mattress and hope that someone sleeps on it and pays you. That's not the case here. You're not inventing a whole new behavior or a product. This is something that people are used to, maybe not in the emerging economies, but in mature economies. So therefore, there's lots of ideas I see in various parts of the world, not just in Silicon Valley. But of course, Silicon Valley continues to remain the innovation capital of the world, so we still see a dominant number of startups coming out of this area. But I feel like insurance is going to be more spread now. Innovation in insurance is going to be spread out all over the world.
I'm interested, Vivek, do you see the same thing in your deal flow that you come, or do you see it regional?
I think we probably see it start regional, but to Gopi's point, we see it go international. I think what's been really interesting is the different kind of regulatory requirements abroad have required a lot of companies to kind of bend and twist in ways that maybe didn't intend. And so one of the areas I spend a lot of time thinking about is kind of next generation data for insurance. And take, we were just having this conversation before, right? Take something like workers' compensation and wanting to collect information about people who have kind of put in a workers' compensation claim. It's probably frowned upon here to go look on social media to figure out kind of what folks are doing, but it is kind of legally impossible to do that in Europe, right? So you have kind of ideas that work phenomenally here that are still solving a pain point that exists abroad, but like how well you can do it, how effectively you can do it, I feel like that ends up being the gating factor.
Which is interesting. And so from that perspective, when you guys invest, do you invest mainly in the US, or do you also invest overseas, or do you invest in subsequent series so that they can branch out?
So, we invest, I'd say, predominantly in the United States. That being said, there's massive markets abroad, and we've had, companies in our portfolio kind of, go abroad as well. I would say that there's also, I think that, there's a massive TAM in the United States. It's monstrous. And I think there's many verticals where kind of international expansion is kind of necessary. It doesn't feel like for a lot of the verticals we spend time in, it's like within insurance it's mandatory, but it's not a function of it not being attractive. It just hasn't happened yet.
There's too much opportunity here.
Sure.
So now Simha, if you can talk to us about, your customer a little bit, who's your perfect customer that you're going after in your customer acquisition?
There are about 6,000 odd insurance companies in the US and several thousands in the rest of the world. So every one of them, I want to sell to every one of them. So, but coming to the point to answer your question directly, I think we find success with the larger enterprises, the larger insurance companies, the $5 billion and more insurance companies where they have significantly archaic processes across a broad set of broker journeys, across a broad set of customer journeys. So we are in the business of helping them to automate many of those back office processes as well as the customer interactions. One of the things that we are observing is insurance companies no longer want to defer the relationship of owning a customer to a broker, right? They want to own the customer because the business models are getting disrupted, right? So bringing the customer closer to the brand is an important aspect of every insurance company's C-level. That's a top of mind KPI that every CEO is being measured on.
So that with that in mind, do you see that you need to partner with someone for change management because you're bringing in new processes, new thoughts, or do you see that they're at a point in the life cycle that they realize they have to change, or
Interestingly, what I'm seeing is, there was no term called Insurtech 3 or 4 years ago. So everyone is now assembling these innovation teams within the company, within a large insurance company. there's either a chief strategy officer or a chief digital officer, or somebody who is responsible for innovation or incubation. So there are stakeholders who are looking out, not trying to look for innovation from within the company, but looking outwards to bring in startups into the ecosystem to solve specific problems. So the challenge is to actually make sure that you can actually expand beyond that proof of concept stage and be able to service those opportunities at larger scale. And that's when startups tend to experience success.
So have you, I don't know if you can talk about, but is there one innovation center at the insurance company that you found is really kind of leading the charge that the others are saying, wow, that's pretty amazing?
No, I have been working with both Global 5000 as well as Fortune 500 insurance companies here as well as the rest of the world. The interesting thing is these problems are fairly symptomatic of every insurance company across the world. The challenges of lowering the cost of underwriting is the same whether it's a US-based insurance company or an Irish-based insurance company or a Japanese-based insurance company or an insurance company in New Zealand. I mean, I just picked all the markets that we are servicing customers. But these are repeatable problems. They are not very specific to a region. I do agree with some of the regulatory aspects of the challenges, but when it comes to the archaic processes, most insurance companies are stuck with 30, 40-year-old systems of records. They have legacy processes. So finding ways to work alongside those systems of records and maybe even sticking to existing processes but showing them better ways to automate and deliver value or lower the cost of delivering that service. Those are all low-hanging opportunities, even before we look at higher value optimizations.
So that's good to know, which kind of leads into the next thing for our two VCs is if you could share either some interesting companies that you saw in the deal flow that have come through that you're like, wow, that's really disruptive, or things that you invested in, but things that, I don't know, that you find really interesting. So love to hear what you guys are seeing.
Sure. So I'll do kind of, just to be objective, kind of one that we're not invested in and one that we are. There's a company I actually spoke to this morning called Pythonic AI. It's based out of the Midwest, and it's fairly simple. They basically built a tool that allows life insurance carriers and health providers to extract all the valuable data out of a medical record and use that for underwriting. Something that today is being done by kind of people poring over files that are, these are not PDFs, they're scans, or this is a PDF that was put sideways into a scanner by a hospital in Milwaukee, and now there's somebody in Ohio that has to go through and kind of, honestly, write it down, and then sometimes write it down, get on the phone, call someone else who will type it in. So that's, early stage company doing really interesting things, kind of life insurance. And then kind of pull it off the side of the world, we're investors in a company called Mulberry that basically is allowing e-commerce websites to embed warranties. Something that sounds super, super simple. But most websites go to carriers who are using actuarial tables that take in consideration things like product weight and size and how long they've been on the shelf. So whenever you and I see a warranty on a website, our first thought is that's probably a scam. And so Mulberry's working to change that.
Cool.
I see the three major themes, and that's how I look at the whole the set of opportunities. The first theme is innovation. Can we build new business models? Can we build new ways of distributing insurance solutions? Can we build whole new insurance products that didn't exist before, like cyber insurance is a good example. So that's a whole set of opportunities that just covers the topic of innovation. The second theme is engagement with customers. Insurance lags behind many other industries in customer engagement, customer satisfaction. And it's even banks are better than insurance companies, which is a pity. So can we change that? Can we make customers love insurance brands. Sounds really weird because most people hate their insurance companies. There's a statistic that shows that when you buy life insurance, you actually forget who your provider is after about 2 years. You don't even know who you're sending your premium to. Like, that's how forgotten these brands are. Can we change that? And can we improve the speed of trust in the digital world where customers feel that they do like their insurance companies? So I have a couple of investments in this area where we can use video-based technologies, and we can use intelligent conversational platforms. There's a company called Hi Marley I invested in. There's another company that uses video-based communication called Blitz. So those things make engagement with customers more seamless and more friendly. And the last area is data analytics. And this is a whole topic that covers so many different aspects. And I believe we're barely scratching the surface of this. With all the IoT devices deployed all over the world, there's a tsunami of data, petabytes of data that's going to hit us. Can we build the infrastructure now, like artificial intelligence-based solutions, or machine language-based processing of data, or blockchain-based infrastructure that's a lot more democratic? That's what I'm very, very excited about. So I invested in a company called Decent.com that does a blockchain-based health insurance platform.
Interesting. I was going to ask you, because I know being in the blockchain space, I think healthcare is an interesting dynamic that where fundamentally, if we could own our data, then it wouldn't matter. We could find the best service where we go, but we are tied to one thing. And so I'd be interested from your perspective, John, is like, what do you see kind of exciting that you, especially being a product manager, you're probably thinking 6, 9, a year, almost 2 years out, and are really in the forefront of that. So
Sure.
This is what you do every day.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's a lot of things I could draw on. I guess one trend I see, and I think it touches on some themes that these guys have mentioned also, is making consumers feel like they have more control over the insurance that they have. I mean, this is something that I think, first the internet and then mobile technology has brought to a lot of industries, and I think this is an important thing that is bringing now finally to insurance. Certainly in our app, the ability to toggle stuff on and off was just one flavor of that. But there's a lot of different ways to create that feeling of, okay, this product, I have control over what it is, and that I can tailor it so that it's right for me. So that too can be done in a lot of different ways. So like on the auto side, we're looking at using telematics to see like, oh, if you're driving some of the time, but then you ride your bike some of the time, then we can adjust your premium accordingly, that kind of thing. So I think that's one kind of pattern of stuff that a lot of other people are doing really cool stuff on as well. The other one is just to think about mobility for a second. Like, you go outside now, you'll see scooters all over the place, bikes all over the place. You go around the world, and yeah, we're talking to a lot of folks in different countries. I gather Paris is kind of a hotbed for scooters and different kinds of mobility. All of them need insurance in some form. And so just rethinking both what are the different modes of transport and what are the different perils, and how do people need or want protection for those things, but also moving to the post-ownership world where people don't own cars anymore, and there's just autonomous vehicles and car sharing and so on. The insurance companies are very scared about that, right? They have, as Gopi was saying earlier, there's this required purchase that everybody has to get car insurance,
Right.
But the flip side of that is it's always been kind of a grudge purchase. People don't like their car insurance. Retention is often very low. It depends on the country, but like in the UK, we gather that it's very, very low. So, but if people don't own a car, then they're not going to need that. And insurance companies are wondering, how do we stay relevant in that world? But, I think we're trying to get in early on and see, well, what's the kind of protection that people want? Do people even know? I'll be happy to cover some scooter stuff, but personally, I don't think I'm going to ride a scooter. It seems like that could go wrong in so many ways.
Definitely not in San Francisco.
I don't doubt that it's fun. I'm sure it is. But I think as people experience that, they're going to start to realize, oh gosh, okay, I really do need protection, either life and limb or my laptop or whatever. And it's just there's just so much opportunity there. It's just super exciting to see that and be able to be kind of on the front lines of it.
So this is a personal question. So who, like, do you sign up for insurance when you check out a scooter, or do you have to have insurance, or does a scooter company have insurance on you?
Great question. From what I can see, there isn't a standard associated with that. A lot of city risk managers are requiring the fleet, like the scooter operators, to have some sort of insurance, but it's all over the map in terms of what kinds of coverage they need, how much coverage they need, and things like that. I think the operators a lot of them get into it not thinking about insurance. And then, one of the things we read was that anywhere between 20% and 48% of the cost of operating a fleet are insurance. So it's a massive cost for them, one that they didn't foresee when they got into it. They just had a cool business idea. And so I think there's a lot going on in terms of what do the operators need to provide, and then should riders be encouraged to get some sort of coverage of their own. It's basically a Wild West at this point.
Well, right, because it's medical, who covers it if something happens?
Right, yeah, they got third-party liability as well as medical, and if you break your laptop or whatever, that's often not covered. So.
Well, thank you, because I in San Francisco, I see in the middle, I don't know, Geary, they're going on their scooter, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
there's 4 lanes of automobiles, and you're on a scooter.
And all of them say you're supposed to wear a helmet, but nobody does.
Yeah, I've never
and it's
seen
not
a
the law.
helmet. So, and this kind of comes to Sid, is what do you see from a cybersecurity? Obviously, the hacks, 61% is a pretty enormous number. I didn't realize it was that high. And so, do you think it's just going to grow exponentially, or do you think there's just going to be a lot of automation for the low end, and so you're going to move more from, to a higher, number, or where do you see it going?
It definitely will grow exponentially. And I think as you're talking about, the IoT devices would be a great example.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about cybersecurity and the impact it could have, an example would be where let's say someone hacks into Tesla and says that on January 1st, every car should turn left.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The impact is tremendous.
Exactly.
The property damage, the injury to people, all of those are not triggered by a cyber attack. So where does that fall under from an insurance perspective? Should this now be part of cyber insurance, or is it still property insurance, or is it still health insurance? So all of these things are still to be explored, and the impact will only grow exponentially.
And where does it fall today as far as, with the automated driving, whose fault is it? Is it the cars?
Not
have
really,
they figured
not
that out
really.
yet? Okay.
No, not really, because it's like saying that you owning a home
But if
is
the
your
chip,
fault.
but if the chip malfunctioned, if a chip
But,
malfunctions, then is it Intel or Qualcomm or?
But is it a
Yeah.
malfunction or is it a cyber attack? I think that's the difference.
Interesting.
Because cyber attacks change every second. There's nothing constant in this world. And that is where I think we personally as a company, we believe in the power of data, as Gopi was talking about. And up until there's enough data to be able to understand what these risks are and how they impact everything, the whole insurance industry will be in a state of flux when it comes to cyber insurance and the impact. And the only way that you can get that data is through connections. And cyber insurance, by the name, just the name cyber, means that everything should be connected.
Right.
But cyber insurance is still done using a paper form.
That is fascinating. So we're gonna have time for one more question along the line, and then we'll open it up. So, 2 years from now, where do you think you are? Kind of each go say, okay, this is what I'm gonna be working on, Predict the future. Yep.
2 years from now, we will be very much focused on making sure that cyber risk and cyber insurance is dynamic.
Okay.
Similar to Trove. Instead of personal property, it will be for cyber risks.
Yeah, I think in 2 years, we're making a lot of bets in some different areas. I'm not sure exactly which one is going to be kind of the breakout winner, but I think, as I've mentioned, mobility is going to be a big area. So I think in a couple of years, we hope to be kind of a standard choice for new fleet operators to to get us, both a provider of the technology as well as kind of broker the insurance. And I think in the area of like renters, I expect we probably, strengthen our position there. You mentioned the global thing. We've played in Australia, UK, and then the US. And so I think I would look to take some of those products and just expand them more broadly.
Gopi and Vivek will be retired, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Vivek will be retired. I love working. The mission for my firm is to enable peace of mind. So I hope that 2 years from now, there will be a few founders, entrepreneurs from this room today that would choose to work with me to make that future happen for all of us. Enable peace of mind for all of us so that we can wake up in the morning and go take some risks and aim for long-term prosperity. But I see another aspect of the projection in 2 years that nothing's really going to change from large insurance company perspective. If you look at the top 10 or 20 insurance companies, their financial statements, the percentage of their revenue they spend on R&D, if you were to take a guess, it's less than 1%.
Yeah.
If you search the word,
I was gonna say 2.
oh, 2 is like, 2 would be 100 times more than what we do today.
That's amazing.
The sad situation is that when I search for the word R&D or research or development, it doesn't even show in their K1s. So then how can you have such a large industry with very little innovation? So to your previous question on.
Well, because they're it's turned into an asset management business.
Yeah.
It's not insurance.
It's become a very risk-averse industry that doesn't
Some of the top
reinvent.
ones, don't even distribute it anymore. They're all about asset management.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So your previous question on where do you see Innovation Hub, and there's a lot of lip service done to that, and even some of the best forums that I've seen, it's a far cry from what is required to make the world a better place.
Right.
And the top guys aren't investing. So they might be traveling at 5 miles per hour, 10 miles per hour. The race is at 100 miles per hour. The Googles of the world, Amazons of the world are investing very heavily in R&D. So it's easy for them to get into a whole new industry and build new products and solutions. So that's what I think is going to happen in the next.
So Bezos might get into.
He's doing it already.
Yeah.
He's gonna be retired, so.
Fingers crossed. Work is fun, but I don't know. No, I think Gopi said it best. I think that insurance has been around for several hundred years, maybe more depending on how you define it. So 2 years is a pretty short window for things to change. So I suspect philosophically I'll be doing the exact same thing, and I scoot to work, by the way. So hopefully that won't be changing either. No, I think that there are probably certain verticals that I spend time in now that will turn out to be 2 years too early. So I suspect, and I think Gopi went into this as well, when I think about certain aspects of data, I think carriers are really, really protective of certain things that they do and less protective of others. And I think one of the things they're very, very protective of is underwriting and pricing. I think that's where they hang their hat on. I suspect that we will be, I don't know, I can't do percents, but we'll be 2 years closer to them realizing that they can outsource some of that as well. I think you mentioned as well, which is, fundamentally these are becoming asset management businesses, and their core differentiator is their access to capital, not their ability to underwrite better than machine, because they probably won't be able to do that long term. But I don't suspect materially anything will change. The anecdote I always think about is, in the world of Insurtech VC, 1 out of every $3 comes from a CVC. But if you kind of put your like public investor hat on, imagine you're an investor in a public company, and they're, instead of investing themselves, are investing elsewhere. That must mean that the velocity of that dollar they recognize is better spent outside than inside, right? So it tells you that, again, like the folks in this room are probably a lot more likely to move the needle than folks that are sitting in kind of like the Allstate R&D department.
So this is a quick question. Do you invest in blockchain as a firm?
So we have a commercial focus. So I think that blockchain is super interesting. We found that commercial uptake of blockchain has been slower, particularly by nature. Kind of it requires large companies to work together. They don't even work well independently. So I suspect that I don't know if 2 years is again a short time span, but if you said 50 years from now, it's a much bigger part of my life, I would not be surprised. But I guess time will tell.
Perfect. Our last guest.
Like I said, we started our journey solving simpler problems, automating conversations, and we've moved up quite a bit in the value chain in terms of the complexity of the problem. So we can now look at the underwriting process, the quote intake journeys, automate big portions of scenarios that were touched largely by humans, so we can actually reduce an intake journey from 2 weeks down to under a day. So that saves a huge amount of time, cost, eliminates a huge amount of manual work. So it returns a significant KPI to operational costs to businesses. So I think the statistical models, the machine learning models that we have created, and the corpuses that we have created for insurance are continuing to get smarter and smarter by the day. So we are pretty bullish on what's possible, and looking forward to the next 5 years here.
Excellent. Well, I'd like to open it up if anyone has questions for the panelists. Bring the microphone back.
This is open to the panel. In terms of, I'm sorry, Rick Popko from Arden Partners. In terms of Insurtech in the future, do you see this more of a job creation or a job killer? Or, basically will tech automate people out of their jobs?
I have a simple perspective. I think many of these technologies augment existing workforce. So companies can deploy that same human capital for higher value problems. There's no fun for a benefit specialist in an insurance company to make 6 attempts to reach a claimant. It's a no fun experience for that claimant either to be constantly receiving phone calls. So there are opportunities for us to take journeys and experiences like that and augment it. So it's a better work experience for the claimant as well as for the benefit specialist. So I take the view that the human value in the workforce is grossly underrated, and if you can apply our skills to empathy and the things that make us really human, who we are, I mean the emotional aspect, the intelligence, the contextual ability to make decisions quickly, we can actually work alongside some of these AI-based technologies and make it work for everyone. So that's just my perspective.
Does anyone else on the panel have a thought?
I think it varies depending on where in the insurance value chain you're looking. And I think some of it is actually pretty simple. I think it's really hard to sell software to someone when you're going to take their job away. And I suspect software in those areas won't sell very fast. But like the example I always give, right? The head of claims of an organization, his or her only job is to decrease the amount of claims and decrease the cost associated with making those claims. So that person's going to be pretty willing to invest in software that might, reduce headcount. Try selling software that cuts costs to an actuary. Right? These are philosophical folks that believe that their job is to price things as right as they possibly can. Like they honestly couldn't care less, candidly, about cutting headcount. So I don't suspect in some verticals or some parts of carriers you're going to see material declines in headcounts. But I think in others you might. It just will take some time.
I think I saw another hand up.
Hi, actually I'm loud, I don't really need the microphone.
Oh, go. You know what, we need it for the video.
Cool, then I'll speak softer. Hi, my name's Eric. I did product at Coinbase and Instagram and consulting at McKinsey. Just a quick question for Trove actually. So how did you get started? Are you a broker or are you actually financing the insurance itself? And then if so, I assume you had to raise a lot of capital, you had to model this out. It seems like a really big pivot to go from here's all your favorite stuff to now insurance.
It was a big pivot, and I wasn't there for the whole time. I joined about 9 months ago, but I can certainly speak to history. I think a lot of the capital came in at the point where they decided to pivot to insurance. I think there was even talk about other ways to monetize, but insurance was kind of the most straightforward. And sorry, you'd asked about like both the capital that was required, but also.
Yeah, it just seems like a huge change to
Okay.
do that, and like when you're like, hey, we're going to be an insurer now, like that seems really hard. And I'm just curious to hear more.
Yeah, initially, since the initial idea was track all the things you love, you know, entering all the data about the things you love is actually a fairly arduous process, and so I think once they've captured a certain number of, you know, I say they because I wasn't there, but at that point, once you've captured a bunch of consumers who go to the trouble of doing that, these are people who really care about their stuff, and so although from a capability perspective, there was a lot that we needed to build up to be able to provide insurance, from the consumer perspective, it wasn't that big a stretch. You know, that once the stuff was there, they wanted to say like, oh yeah, I want to protect that thing. For sure, there was a lot that we had to build out, and certainly a lot of relationships that we had to get with carriers and so on. But luckily that's in the past, so I don't worry.
Follow-up.
Yeah, just another question actually. How do you think about lending versus insurance, right? Because at surface level, they have some similarities, right? You want to be really good at assessing risk. You want to have access to capital. Obviously, they're different in a lot of ways, right? Like insurance, you have your own flow, asset management, lending's higher risk, higher return. I'd be curious just to hear the group's thoughts on like how you think about the two.
Yeah, so I came from Lending Club. Yeah, there are a lot of analogies. I mean, certainly the you know, it is somewhat capital intensive, although at Lending Club, they had investors who provided the capital to lend to borrowers, so that they went kind of peer-to-peer / hybrid or marketplace model. I think there are a lot of similarities kind of structurally, both in the sense that there's the part of the business where you sell, you know, and then, you know, try to get people to borrow money or whatever, and then on the insurance side, obviously sell the policy. And then there's the sort of unfortunate consequence of doing that, which on the lending side is loan servicing, and on the insurance side is claims. Sort of like you can't do insurance without doing that piece. So I think structurally there's something similar. I think one thing that's interesting to me that's something of a difference around insurance is sort of in lending, you lend somebody some money and then they pay it back over some very long period of time. So the bulk of their time in the relationship with you is the part where you're kind of taking money from them. And so, you know, if you look at like NPS, it's sort of high at the beginning when you hand them a pile of money and then it goes into the toilet, right? In insurance, it's sort of similar in the sense that they might be sort of happy with it at first, but they become a little bit more indifferent. But what's different is like, if you're really good at pulling somebody's payments, that's not why they would select you as a lender. But if you really delight somebody in the claims experience, they're your customer for life. So like that long term where not a whole lot happens, but when something does happen, you really have to delight them. That's pretty critical for retention. So that's at least one difference that I've noticed. And you know, so we're actually working on trying to bring a better customer experience into the claims process. Have no interest in competing in claims adjudication, like that's well covered territory. But you know, if we can get rid of the email and God forbid fax from the claims process and really delight people there, that is, I think, one difference that I've noticed.
Are there other questions? I think there was another hand up? Okay. So if there are no other questions, is there any final comments? If not, there is food and drink outside, and I'm sure these gentlemen would love to have a conversation, whether it's about their company or about investment.
I want to thank all of you for coming here today. I know we all have busy schedules, so thanks so much for coming here and joining us. And thanks so much for organizing and putting this event together, and thanks to the law firm for hosting us.
Thank you.
Say it again? Not this in particular, but I've been
We're outside.
Oh yeah.
So we're founded, we haven't passed it later.
Hi everyone, would you mind taking a seat please? Sorry, it looks like we finished a little bit earlier than we usually do. And we have got one pitch. And so if the speakers wouldn't mind taking a seat in the audience.
No, thank you though.
We've got PJ Gupta from
Checkbook.
checkbook. And Monique's going to introduce you.
Right.
Hi. So I wanted to introduce PJ Gupta from Checkbook, and he's the founder and the CEO. He's going to do a quick 5-minute pitch, so if you guys can just stay here and hear it out, we'd all appreciate it, and here you go.
If you like, you can clap, and if you don't, you know, all those rotten tomatoes you have. So here's what I'm going to, what I really like to do is show you things instead of talk and PowerPoint. And I don't think we have projector and stuff hooked up, right? It's a small group. What I could do is maybe just show you my laptop.
So, what's that?
Let me hold your laptop.
Yeah, I was gonna do that.
Thank you. All right.
So the problem we're solving in a bunch of people refer to efficiency in insurance. You were talking about claims efficiency, John. Paper checks. Insurance companies are sending out lots of them. Okay, and everybody, Sima, you had mentioned about getting connected to the customer. So those are the two problems we're solving. We're making claims efficient by taking away paper and still keeping the processes and not having to change much of the back end in the insurance industry. And we offer a way to connect with the end user on a channel that heretofore has been ignored by the insurance companies. So that's really the gist of the product. What we have is, if you go to checkbook.io, you can try this at any time you want. It's a demo. And Mark is Vanna White. I'll sign up later. You don't need to sign up for the demo. And if you click on send a check, you can send a test check by just somebody's email address and their name and the amount. That is all you need. So any of you who are interested, I'm offering only for today. I only do this on, what is it, Tuesdays? $1 million checks. So you can try this. Basically just put in your name here and an email address and amount, and you get an image of the check in the email. No sign up, no app to download, it's right there. And you click on the green button. Let me see if I can show you one of the images. Here you go. It's kind of what it looks like. And that's basically what it is. And you click on this green button that says here, click to deposit your check. And then you get 2 or 3 options depending on what the payor has chosen for you to see. And you see the check, you see the options to deposit it, and if you choose the instant pay option, you type in your name, debit card number, and you click submit, and the money is in your bank right away, 18 seconds. So think about all the use cases there. You've got 1,000 people stranded in a hurricane. You're not going to ask them to fill out an application. They need money to survive. So insurance companies would actually send physical people there with checks and like wads of cash to dole this out. So a whole bunch of use cases. You can do the other option, which is just print the check. You can do the deposit online option, which is you verify your bank account and you deposit the check online. And the key thing with what we built as a platform is that once you deposit the check online, the token to your bank account is registered with us. So next time any insurance company wants to send you a claim, all they need to do is just put in your email and it automatically gets deposited to your bank account. No action required.
All right.
That's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, guys.
Thanks, Mark. You bet.
All right, if, we're done for the evening with the presentation, and